And we're back. It's Venemisto with part 3 of our vocal extraction tutorial series for Audionamix ADX TRAX Pro 3 SP. Alright, so in the previous 2 videos, we got our feet wet understanding the program and the basic workflow. In part 2, we took a look at the separate screen. In part 3, now we're going to look at the process screen, where we can access advanced processing algorithms and some other tools to start to dial in on our extraction. Let's get into it. Alright, so you can see here we've got our vocal extraction project file opened up in TRAX. Now remember, the track we're using is Cooper and Keneally, Duffy's Cut, a nice little folk bluesy number. And we went ahead and have the automatic separation, but we also have the refined separation. If you remember, we got on the first screen, we did some pitch guide refinement. I just hit Alt-A in order to zoom all the way out. And we got up to about 2 minutes of the track where we refined the pitch guide. So come back over to the process screen. What we're able to do here is basically, we can A/B test between our however many we have. Right now we just have 2 separations. We can access, of course, the listen key if we just want to listen to the original.
Duffy said.
Switch over.
Duffy said.
And then let's take a look first off at the advanced processing algorithms that we can access. So if I click on this button right here, you can see it has the cloud key, so it's going to basically send this up to the backend servers that Audionamix runs to run some more algorithms on it. So you choose which guide you want to use, either the automatic or the refined. And this is the guide from the separate screen, to be clear on that. Now, see, it's not these separations. These separations have already been run. What this is going to do is it's going to rerun a separation completely different from these 2, using either the automatic pitch guide from this tab or the refined pitch guide from this tab. And then it will give you an additional separation here. So what you can do is choose high quality. This is a separate algorithm, and it's going to, again, use the pitch guide from the first one and give you a completely different separation than this refined one. You can do consonance boost if you're having trouble getting those S's or the f. Basically any of the vocals that don't have the voice box engaged underneath, so they don't have tonal content. The consonance boost can help. For a really airy, breathy type vocal take, you can use long reverb, or you could go ahead and use short reverb if it's a tighter type track. Also, panning position, if you know that there's a lot of musical content that's non-vocal related off to the sides, you can use the panning. Typically, I hold off on doing that because we can be more nuanced and fine-grained with it on the spectral tab, which we'll take a look at in the next part. But so let's take a look at this. Well, I'm going to do consonance boost, HQ, and long reverb. So I'll go ahead and hit process, and then we'll come back with the process separation. All right, cool. So the HQ separation finished running through. And now what we've got is we can do an A/B between our original refined separation and the HQ algorithm with the long reverb and consonance boosts and see how that comes out.
They came to build the railroad. They came to cut the stone. Get a job, a decent meal, send some money home. They came to build the railroad. They came to cut the stone. Get a job, a decent meal, send some money home.
So really it comes down to personal preference and just doing a number of these tests. What you can do is run your refined, HQ straight up, HQ with short reverb, and HQ with long reverb. Pick one of those that you like. Again, you can always comp them together, which we'll look at in a few moments. But really it comes down to what you're looking for. You can tell on this HQ one, seems like there's more top end, and there's definitely a little bit more wash on the vocals. It is picking up this a delay effect on the vocals, maybe a little bit too much. So I'd try the short reverb and just the straight up HQ one, again, to see what works best, because I can always bring just the refined one or just the HQ one into my DAW and add reverb there that's going to sit with the arrangement if I am doing a dance remix tracks, for instance. So that's a good look at what this advanced processing algorithms can do. And again, it's going to come down to your ears and what sounds best for your particular use case. All right, so next up is the drum reduction tool. This isn't going to be the track that we're going to showcase it on, but what you do is you come down here, again, choose which track you want to use. Now, in this case, you're not just going from the pitch guide, you're actually starting from one of these separations already. So, processing button right here actually uses the pitch guide from the separate tab to make a brand new separation. The drum reduction tool and this spatial isolation tool will actually start with one of these separations and then further process it. So that's the mental model that you got to be. Left is separate screen. These two work off a track. And then we just hit process. So I'm going to skip that for now. We have a future pro tip video coming up, which I'll link here and in the comments once we show how to use the drum reduction tool on a track that warrants it. All right, so now let's take a look at the spatial isolation tool. We're going to get a quick intro to this, and again, we'll have a future pro tip video up that really gets into more details here. So first off, we have a frequency slider where we can set the max of the high end and the low end. We have a pan where we can go through the stereo field and, you know, cut off the sides, just let the mids through, that type of thing. Ambiance, tonal, and noise. So let's take a quick look at what these specifically do. So ambiance. Now, ambiance helps remove sounds that aren't in phase. You know, it can be helpful to get rid of reverb elements, and you've been hearing that delay. That could be a technique we use there. For tonal noise sliders, this is going to adjust the amount of the tonal or noisy elements to be extracted. So tonal would be stuff with a melody. Noise would be things that are like clicks, you know, drum hits, that type of stuff. Maybe even the acoustic guitar strings, the strumming there, that's more of a noisy element. A lot of the tonal noise stuff too we can also do over on the spectral tab, which we'll take a look at in part 4. Also smoothness. Now what smoothness does is this is going to be a way that we can reduce artifacts while also at the same time lowering the quality of the separation itself. So you want to be careful with this again. Maybe you use the smoothness on one particular little section to set it up, you know, somewhere above 0, but then you could just comp that section in. Finally, we have bypass in case we want to listen to what the track sounds like without the spatial isolation. And then my favorite part of this is the key listen button. And what this is going to do is it's going to show you what's being removed. So let's take an example here. I'm going to go ahead and start with the refined.
They came to build the railroad. They came to cut the stone.
So our separation already is pretty up the middle on the mids, but let's say we take this into about 25 on each side.
They came to build the railroad. They came to cut the stone.
Okay, that's what the track sounds like after it's been processed with spatial isolation tool. If I click on key listen, now we're going to hear what's being removed from that. So in this case, there's not much percussion to remove, but what's really interesting is we're hearing everything on the sides from the 24 and 24 left and right pan position out. So this can be very helpful if you've got a vocal or another piece of melodic content down the middle you're trying to get rid of, and you know over the side there's a shaker throughout the whole track. You know, one way we can get rid of that is to go to the spectral tab and use the pan specific view, which we'll look at in the next part. But if it's the whole track, you can honestly just process it with the spatial isolation tool, and a lot of times that does the trick. So if you've got something going on here and you want to hear, okay, is this really improving the quality of the track? Is this improving the quality of the separation that I'm running it on? You know, yes or no, the bypass is a nice way to hear that. Let's cut half the frequency spectrum out.
Came to cut the stone. Get a job.
Now to bypass.
A meal. Send some money home.
So the idea is you can use that to say, okay, let me take a step back. I've made some, I've adjusted some settings here. I'm processing this separation. Does it really sound better or not? You know, so by combining the key listen button to make sure you're not removing too much, and using the bypass to make sure it actually does sound better after you've processed it, you can come up with something that sounds good. You get to a point you feel comfortable with, then you hit the render button, and this renders it down into another separation here. Okay, cool. So the final thing I want to talk about on this screen is how to comp. So you want to comp your separations together, perhaps. What you do is you just hover over one of the tracks and go ahead and select it. Now what this will do is pop this down onto the comp track, and when I hit export, it's going to just take out this piece. Let's say I like this phrase better. See how it stole this from up here? So what you need to do as you go through, set your first section, then hold the shift key. Now I can select this. Again, I can hold the shift key, come back up here, and you see that it's comped all the red together. Again, as an example, I liked this one of the HQ, this little phrase better in the HQ version. Then I go back to the refined version. So this can be really helpful. You know, one thing that you can do, I'm going to hit Command A to zoom all the way out. This is what I've done a lot. Let's say I like the refined one the best. So I just go ahead and select the entire one. Now, instead of getting crazy jumping back and forth, all I have to do is, let's say this area is somewhere where I know I like this phrase better. I can just come in here. And by the way, when I'm zooming like that, I've got a magic mouse. I'm going up and down on it. You can also come here and click that, switch it around this way, or you can also drag this. I find the magic mouse to be more intuitive, and I can move a little bit just, you know, without having to move the cursor from where I want it to be to make a selection. But again, let's say, let me zoom in here. Let's say I like this separation better for this phrase. I'm going to go ahead and hold down shift. So there we go. Let's say, you know, for this one, I like the automatic better there. And what's nice is with, you know, different color code, you can see how the comp is coming together. So I would say it's important when you do separations other than automatic and refined, you're able to choose the color. Make sure you choose colors that are different enough so that when you do comp it together, hit Command A to zoom all the way out, you can see the different separations that are being used in your final comp. And again, once you're ready to export it, you like where you stand, you go ahead and hit export, and then you can save it, naming it what you want to your bounce, to the bounce folder in your project file. All right, so that concludes part 3 of our vocal extraction tutorial series. We're looking at the process tab where we have access to some advanced processing algorithms, some drum reduction tools, and definitely the spatial isolation tool. We also looked at how to comp your separations together if there's pieces of one and pieces of another that you think come together to make the best separation for your specific use case. So in the next part, we're going to look at the spectral editor and the spectrogram and see how we can really get in there and do some of the final last little pieces of polish that TRAX wasn't able to do automatically. Until next time.